example is we share. I'd like to open by sharing a little something about each other as we read for the folks stuck in long-running meetings to break free and come here. Chip just showed us right before we started recording a little bit about the inside of his. I don't know if it's a man cave. It's like a palace of computation. I don't know what that is. It's so beautiful. I want to know a little something about Don and Chris and Bob and Ken and Guillermo. So what's one thing we don't know about you that is in some way positive? How would I illustrate that? I was the captain of my math team in 8th grade.
I knew that.
Yeah.
You didn't use the same things around me.
Can't use it twice.
Something new.
Oh, geez, that's hard. I'm going to come back to me. I may have to think of something Kirsten doesn't know about me. Something positive about you that's true and safe to share. It's not a competition. Unless you got a gold medal in the Olympics, that is totally a competition. Don is smiling, so Don goes next. And then probably Chris, Ken, Bob, and Guillermo. Don, go for it.
Your mute's on, Don.
You double-click mute, man. Don, you're muted, man. Yeah, still muted. There we go. Now, still no microphone. Ah.
Huh.
Oh, the tragedy.
Oh, Don.
He's unmuted, and yet somehow we're not getting it. All right, I'm moving on. So Chris Vierig and Christine Fahey in that order, and Kenneth and Guillermo. Chris Vierig or Chris Fahey, whoever can unmute fastest. Go. Christine Fahey.
Unmute. Okay. I'm actually in my car. But okay, so I will top your math club with, I was president of the Math Major Association in college.
Nice.
But I'm not that great at math.
You know, you just have to enjoy being part of the game, I think. Chris Vierig, I know yeah. Chris is a many talented person out of Scotland temporarily and interested in accounting and blockchain and biology. Am I remembering that right, Chris?
Yeah, biomedical sciences. Sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, just something positive about yourself that we don't already know.
Positive. I'm into metal and hard rock.
Metal and hard
Thanks
rock.
For the horns. Yeah, many people are surprised by that. They think like I listen to classical music because I've got a PhD or something.
I love it.
Know plenty of people that listen to Metallica that have PhDs.
I would claim to be a juggalo, but I'd be lying. Let's see, Guillermo and maybe Kenneth.
Hi guys, this is Guillermo. I'm sorry, I'm just driving. That's why I didn't put my camera on. But in 15 minutes, I believe that I will be in my destiny. So I'm from Mexico City. I'm part of the Hyperledger chapter, co-founder in Latin America. And well, I have my own company here down in Mexico who is related to technology, services, etc. So nice to meeting you.
Got it. Cool. And maybe one more, Ken Luster, whose photo, by the way, shows someone doing a maneuver on a waterboard or what is that, some sort of single ski, water skiing. I could not possibly execute that. I think that means something else, though.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I'm using a different computer today. This is my 3rd meeting, so thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I think we're ready to get started. Let's talk about what we're up to today. And this is the 3rd of 3 sessions that Kirsten Pomales, Langenbrunner, and I are hosting or presenting to you, hosted by FedEx Institute of Technology, Blockchain 901. And we're coming to you from the IEEE P2145 Working Group on Blockchain Governance Standards. In case you couldn't see ours, and the camera, here's photos of us. And Kirsten is also the Director of Operations at an outfit called Facings. And mention something to us, Kirsten, about Facings, in case folks don't know.
Yeah, so Facings is working in the NFT space. We help enterprises launch digital collectibles. So think like baseball cards on the blockchain.
Very cool. And so here's a quick outline of how we plan to tackle today's session. We've got 1 hour together, minus a few minutes here for intros. We'll talk about what makes blockchain different and why there's a certain amount of preparation needed to get your enterprise, your organization, your small firm, whatever, to adopt blockchain successfully. What are the implications for success, and then how to prepare the organization, the right use case, assessing readiness, increasing your readiness, and finding allies. So let's start off with Slido. I think if you've been to either of the two prior ones, you know that we like to really use Slido quite a bit. This is our way of getting interactive, real-time, somewhat real-time feedback from our audience. I use my cell phone for this. It's got the camera on. You can tell the camera, and I point that at the QR code, and it prompts me with the URL that then takes me to Slido. Or you just go in browser tab to slido.com and put in 6-digit number 127746. And when you go there, you will be prompted with this exact question: rate your own knowledge of blockchain and distributed ledger technology. Put in a 1 if you're a novice, put in a 5 if you're an expert, something in between, whatever feels right to you. So we've got 4 of our attendees have responded out of 14. When we get to 7, we'll have had half. I call that quorum, and then I'll start showing the results. Like getting a sense of just what kind of experience folks have. 5 responses so far. We're going to be using Slido repeatedly throughout the hour, so it's good to get yourself spun up on Slido. Even if this doesn't seem like the most compelling question to you, it's in some senses a warm-up to get you to debug your Slido connectivity, as well as actually providing us with useful information. Okay, that's half. So what do we see? Over to display. All right. 3s and 4s. This is a very confident group. It's an advanced topic, how to get your organization ready. So I guess it's for going to disproportionately attract folks who feel relatively far down the path. Maybe 1 or 2 more folks would like to answer. So when I navigate away from the slide, the question stops accepting answers. Kirsten, I don't know about you, but I'm both impressed and pleased that we'll be speaking at a fairly detailed and high level here now.
I know this is going to be great for the interactive session.
No kidding. All right. Related topic for you. What types of questions are you trying to get answers to? This is not really too terribly correlated with the prior question. Question type 1 is, what can blockchain do for me? The coolness, the utility, what are some hypothetical or potential use cases? Question type 2 is, how can I make blockchain actually work? Maybe I'm building a system. Question type 3, how can I make blockchain applications work better? Like finding the right ones, the right features, or I'm optimizing something. And question type 4 is, what else can I build on top of my existing reliable blockchain infrastructure? And you'll notice these are qualitatively different types of questions. I think you can select up to 2 responses. Okay, we've got 6 of our 14 participants have responded, 1 more, and that will be quorum. I will reveal the results. This obviously is relevant for where we go in the interactive portions of the conversation. Okay, 7. How can I make blockchain work? Is the winner, followed by how can I make them work better? Tied now. Okay, this really is an advanced group. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what makes blockchain different. Kirsten.
So In our opinion, there are three core reasons why blockchain is different. And this is, comparing it to other emerging technologies that you might be trying to implement in your enterprise. First reason, it's collective. So it is not, blockchain is not going to give you the utility that you need from it unless it's multi-party. We've been over this a little bit in some of our prior lectures, but basically you, through collaborating with different parties to build out your blockchain system, open your organization up to a lot of types of interactions that it's often not used to. Would you mind moving, Thomas?
Absolutely, and I would like elaborate on that if I could for just a sec. If you wanted to do any other part of, the fourth industrial revolution, if you want to do machine learning, if you wanted to do AI, if you want to do robotics, you just do it internally. Do it yourself. Your company or your organization, you just find 2 or 3 folks you want to do it with. You do it yourself, and you're fine. Blockchain, you have to have other parties. You are absolutely forced to engage in this multi-party cooperation from the get-go to get any value at all.
Additionally, with blockchain technology, you don't have a super admin. So, if something goes wrong with your internal database and you need something edited, something's incorrect, you can just, have your tech team go in and fix stuff with blockchain. Everything that happens to the chain must be based on the collective making the decision. So that's you and all these different parties that are involved in this network. And because of that, it can be a lot more difficult or sometimes even impossible to alter things that have been written to the chain depending on your architecture. So it's very high stakes. And lastly, with blockchain technology, oftentimes in organizations, for emerging tech, you'll have a couple of core stakeholders be really interested in advocating for the technology, but blockchain really takes the commitment from everyone from C-suite to actual implementers to really see success. It's a lot more than something that you can execute within an innovation lab, like you can with some other emerging tech.
And I want to emphasize that this level of cooperation is hard to sustain. Cooperation takes training, it takes near perfect teamwork. I mean, the reason you have advanced military units go through exercises where they literally all have to carry a log all the time, which seems like a really kind of stupid, basic thing to have to do, is because it's really hard. And it forces them to communicate and cooperate and think about each other, not just themselves. And it's like, we all have to work together all the time and be aware of each other all the time. And they don't do this in basic training. This is advanced stuff right here. And yet it looks simple and kind of absurd. This level of effort is not easy. It means you're going to have, for example, a whole bunch of committees. The successful organizations like Chronicled Meta Ledger, they talk about how they spend more than half their time, less than half their time is on technology, more than half their time is on politics and stakeholder management. And that includes lots of committees, a steering committee for the overall project, a scheduling and change management committee to figure out when things need to happen, because other things are also happening. Several technical committees, several business analysis committees, an emergency response committee, and very possibly others. And so you begin to see that it's not something where you just like stick a key and turn the key and off we go to blockchain land. You're setting yourself up for endless committee meetings potentially, which means it better be replacing something much worse. And if your firm doesn't realize that they are signing up for that level of effort, they're going to be very unpleasantly surprised when it happens. Okay, having said that, I'd like you to rate your organization's readiness to adopt blockchain and or distributed ledger technology based on rather dire warnings.
Now that we've scared you all.
Yes, now that we've beaten the drum for just how effortful it's likely to be. And don't forget to hit send after you put in your rating. I just sat there staring at mine thinking, why is it not accepting my answers? I didn't hit send. And obviously, since we haven't given you our framework for what readiness means, this is really more of an emotional sense, or an intuitive sense, rather than some sort of analytic conclusion. Okay, 6 out of 17 folks we're up to now. So I'm going to wait for 8 people to respond before I reveal the answer. Okay, what do we have? Mostly pretty okay. That's it's a broad spectrum, but we're weighted to the high end. Nice. One person each for 1, 2, and 3. 3 people said a 4 and 2 others said a 5. All right.
We have 2 really, really confident teams in here. I like it.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's talk about some implications of blockchain. One of the truths / risks is that your firm is going to start sharing unprecedented levels of information with trade partners and maybe even competitors. It also implies that your firm doesn't get to have its own version of reality. That could be something as simple as you can no longer say the check is in the mail. They can tell if it's in the mail. They can tell just as well as you can if the transaction does or doesn't exist, because you're all sharing one system where the transactions live. A lot of folks aren't aware of just how much they lean on that sort of finessing of reality until it goes away. This further implies you have to focus on competition. And you may focus on competition in new and different ways. There's a story about a Marriott hotel whose big competitor right up the street had a massive problem with the plumbing in their laundry in the basement, and that hotel literally couldn't do laundry for like a week. And the Marriott said, you can do your laundry over here with us. We've got space and bandwidth for that. And they literally did the laundry for their competitor. I think they charged them for it, but they had all these big industrial laundry facilities in the basement. So what that meant was, instead of making the competitor struggle and trying to get extra, seating or extra customers from the competitor struggling over laundry, they chose to compete at the level of customer service. And they probably also knew that some future day they'd need a hand, or they'd be overbooked and need to send a traveler down the street, and they would need favors. And yeah, they're competitors, but what are you competing on? Is it something foundational, like where you could actually help each other, or is it more customer service and value? So I offer that as a way in which you can cooperate with your competitors while still competing with your competitors. A related point: instead of fighting over what the truth is, we now have that settled. It's what's on the blockchain is going to be our truth, unless something really wacky happens and we get some change management committee in to fix an error on the chain. Most of the time, we're going to treat what's on chain as true, and now we have to fight over what to do about it. And again, for a lot of dysfunctional organizations, that's going to be kind of wild and wacky and new for them, because they spend a lot of their time, marketing pointing a finger at sales, and sales points a finger at marketing, and everyone points a finger at merchandising, and everyone yells at manufacturing. Many of those fights go away. This in turn means we're going to increase the need for psychological safety. By psychological safety, I mean the phenomenon that, as the term is defined, I believe, by the originator, Amy Edmondson, as the belief that you will not be shamed or ridiculed for speaking up with a question or a problem or a suggestion. And you can no longer hide your problems, right? If there's a production problem or a delivery problem or a sales problem or a hiccup or something, it's immediately visible to everyone. And if you've got one of these old style organizations where people, shame each other and score political points when somebody else has a stumble, and everyone's trying to look good all the time, yeah, you're going to fail with blockchain. And you're going to have to let go of that kind of posturing and really talk about, okay, how do we help each other out? This means that a toxic workplace would probably be unable to adopt a blockchain-based solution, because the very attempt to adopt it will expose people to such increased levels of infighting and finger pointing and sneering, because the problems become more visible. And they're used to hiding problems. Now you can't hide them. So yeah, it's going to get messy for some organizations, and those who have high psychological safety will have a comparative advantage. So I believe. So we have to work from the bottom up. The lowest level of the brain is the lizard brain, the amygdala. A person who is, in a sense, triggered, if you will, can only fight or flee, or faint, I suppose. It's the amygdala hijack. And when that's true, when this happens to you, and it happens to all of us, you get scared or you get angry, your lizard brain takes over and all the higher functions get short-circuited. You cannot have complex thoughts or engage in complex problem solving when your amygdala has grabbed control and says, I'm running things now, we're in trouble, I need to fight someone, I need to run away. Higher functions can only emerge with team trust and psychological safety, and only then, when the lizard brain relaxes, can we do analytical thinking and problem solving. I know this is an oversimplified diagram, and yet it does contain some important elements of truth, plus cartoons. Kirsten, would you introduce the next section?
Yes. So for the next 30 minutes or so, we want to flip things around to you. So we've talked a little bit about what things inhibit organizations from being productive with blockchain technology. We've talked a little bit about what things organizations can do to better prepare themselves. And what we want to do now is kind of look at what each of you are experiencing in your organization, what you're considering in regards to implementing blockchain technology, and try to see if we could help out in like your specific scenario, and kind of explore these together and give some audience members, who potentially don't have, a one-on-one experience with a blockchain project, some case studies that they can explore. So now it's time for takers. Do we have anyone in the audience that is working on a project that they'd like to share with us and answer some of these questions?
Chip says he's interested in security issues. Yeah, several of you said that you're working on existing applications, trying to make things work better. Who is that, and what are you allowed to share with us about those projects that you're on?
Me?
Go for it, Chip.
Sure. Well, one of the major issues that we have with blockchain technology that we're seeing right now, and that I have to deal with, is security. Security issues, because I mean, what you see in the cryptocurrency industry, because crypto is based, on the same thing off blockchain, is how to steal ledgers, hyperledgers, and how to steal information actually out of blockchain, and how easy it actually is right now. And looking at a lot of the security concerns, and implementation for that, because you don't want to ever decentralize your security applications and security. You want to be able to make sure that it's controlled and maintained, from a 7 different layer approach, just like the ISO model. And then on the second part that I have to deal with, with security issues, is applications that are legacy based, and trying to get those, that are proprietarily based around the company, or based around, everyday business needs, to adapt them into blockchain and, hyperledger and hyperledger systems. If they're like a Windows, for example, Windows 7 machine that I found last week, that,
Sorry, did you just say Windows 7?
Yep, Windows 7, a machine that actually ran Perl, that works for an insurance company, but that machine, that sits under a lady's desk, does $4.2 million worth of insurance claims for jet skis. So how do I take that and put that into, blockchain technology? You got a Windows 7 machine, you got to roll it up to 10, got to make a snap of it. Then I've got to, push it to the cloud for backup. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, when you're looking at, the average, company and their technological, dystopian hell, how do you take that, clean that all up, you say get them ready for blockchain, and basically tell them like, look, you're way off from even thinking about using blockchain. You've got to do your basic level, of systems administration and like clean up your AD, get all your stuff compliant, get all your, regulatory stuff taken care of first. Oh yeah, you might want to think about your backups, doing your patch management, your vulnerabilities, your assessments. After you get all that done, then we'll talk about blockchain, so having those tough conversations with clients and clientele and tell them that like, look, your systems, they suck. And you're not even to the point to where you can even get to the point to even doing this, because if you did, you would open up more vectors of attack for, hackers, state nations, whatnot, to be able to take advantage of your systems. I deal with this daily.
Can this be a debate?
Please.
So, Chip.
Oh God, here's
your
Keith.
concern, but the reality here is that whether you implement blockchain or not can be completely separated from your current state of your security environment. It's like any other technology. We don't stop implementing technologies because we have security readiness challenges. So I think I'm not trying to say that companies don't have to go work on their security, but I don't think that that's a prerequisite for working in the blockchain space. The blockchain space is not going to, in my opinion, accelerate your problem with security. It's another avenue of externally communicating with your vendors that is likely to be more secure than what you're doing today. So I'm not on board. I'm in healthcare, right? And we are very, very conservative. But we would treat our security, we would look at a blockchain solution, same way we look at any other solution. What security risk profile does it have? And we would evaluate that. And we wouldn't say, first, we have to solve all of our security problems before we think about blockchain. We look at blockchain as saying, well, we don't really have a good use case yet in the healthcare delivery space that has come to our attention. When that happens, right, then we can take a look at that. And we won't say, well, we're not mature enough yet. We will say, what value does that offer to us? And what is the risk profile of that specific solution? So that's where I think we're at in the healthcare space.
And that is a double-edged sword. Yeah. I mean, we've had that debate before between you and I, for healthcare records, awesome. For prescription drugs, depending on what it might be, it's not level 1, level 2 narcotics, perfectly fine because of the regulation stuff that goes with that. Considering that I deal with healthcare and banking, it is, and you're correct, it's the risk profile and it's the risk management that goes within that. If we're going to pour $4.2 million into, this pet project, it better work, and it better work seamlessly because, like you just said in the first part of your slides, you're taking away and you're showing total transparency of your network and your systems, to, the world, and then on top of that, you're also talking about the interdepartmental political fiefdoms that you've got to fight to be able to grab funds to be able to fund your project.
Well, I think if you talk about readiness, the readiness isn't, I'm not hearing that the answer is switch everything over to blockchain.
We'll never do that.
What I'm hearing is that there's a journey and you find a use case, right? You find a use case, you look at that use case in terms of the business capabilities, you discover if your readiness is about change. Are you ready for change? Because it's change. Are you ready for the transparency? Well, maybe in that specific use case you are. For example, you talk about healthcare records. That's probably going to be later on the chain, so later on the implementation standpoint because of its potential for breach. But there's lots of other things like supply chain within the healthcare space that could reduce our operational inefficiencies, right? Improve operational efficiencies. That would make some sense. Payment models, reducing friction between payers, reducing friction between patients and the organization. Healthcare records tends to be that holy grail, but I don't think we will start there. I think we will start in every industry. I think we will start slow and say what use case makes sense, and then are we ready for that? That's how I see that slide.
I agree with Ken. I think even specifically with the example that you provided for insurance claims benefits and things like that, blockchain is an ideal solution, and what it provides security wise, regardless of their in-house systems. 2/3 of their interface could be completely browser based.
Correct.
So, and the resistance to ransomware would also be a big security hike for them. So there are definitely options available from a security standpoint that, and I'm not saying just jump completely in, but that would be beneficial in the use case that you provided, or the example that you provided, to that particular company or industry, and actually probably save them some costs in having to do a lot of infrastructure updating on security by moving to a blockchain-based solution, in my opinion.
Thanks, Justin. Who else?
Well, I thought I might jump in and make a quick comment. This security issue is certainly paramount in this day and time. And I think the more we can abstract this burden away from business interest and let organizations like Microsoft, and Google, and Amazon address those issues, they can do it much more cost effectively and do it at a level that a business can almost never replicate. And of course, we already have that somewhat with these organizations providing server-based services, but they're providing the security envelope around those servers. So, but now we still have this vulnerability at the desktop. But Microsoft just announced about a week and a half ago that they're going to start streaming virtual desktops that are running the latest version of Windows. So not only does that, remove, I think, a lot of the technological burden of from a business, but also the big security issue around maintaining a desktop and a secure environment around that desktop. Because even if you have blockchain, you can use phishing techniques and break into, and basically Microsoft is just streaming bits and keyboard and mouse click. So, but yeah, I guess Chip, you have a comment on that?
I saw Chip reacting rather visibly too.
There is no way my industry will adopt a Windows 11 with that kind of, virtual desktop and those kind of holes that are already, first off, it's Microsoft. Okay. And I take that with a grain of salt. Okay. Everybody on this call. So, I'm not the biggest fan, but, I have to use them because it's Microsoft world and we all work in it and whatnot. But we will not adopt anything in the government or the business space, for the banking industry, probably for Windows 11 because of some of those features that they're even talking about. Because, yeah, that's all I'm just going to say.
Even
Tom Furman just turned his
I could
camera on.
rant for an hour on, Microsoft, but
as opposed to moving backwards may be a more viable solution for your industry. Using a thin client.
We already do that. I mean, we do that anyway. I mean, the medical industry, as well as the banking industry, they use wide thin clients and a lot of thin clients and stuff, from the server and server-based systems, at the teller-based level, yes, absolutely, and behind the scenes, sometimes we have those, in the desktop level, you don't see that until you start getting into, behind the scenes, with the executive staff and so forth.
This is Tom Furman, and I really resonate with this conversation. I'm in the consulting business, and I focus on blockchain and cybersecurity, and the cybersecurity of blockchain. I'd make a comment at a maybe higher level, which is when I speak with clients in the stage where they're anticipating adoption of blockchain, I try to urge them to get an understanding of the risks that they might be buying into. And crystallize those. So I group the primary risks in three familiar categories. The first is liability, second is compliance, and the third is operational risk. And operational risk includes things like what the insurance industry calls technology failure. Something goes wrong, didn't work. It's a glitch, right? We hear that a lot. Something happened. Okay, so if my business depends on this blockchain, what are my risks? What if somebody has a problem? What if the blockchain has a problem? What do I do? And so there's no one answer to that, but it's important that clients understand the risks and have mitigation plans and management plans in mind.
Right.
The other part of operational risk is cybersecurity. There's, the conventional wisdom or the soundbite is, oh, blockchain is secure. Secure, it's immutable. And we all know that, hey, we're talking about an enterprise IT system here. And yeah, the blockchain data structure is kind of inherently good in the confidentiality, integrity, availability triad. Pretty good inherently at integrity and availability. Doesn't address confidentiality unless that's addressed separately. But you've got a lot of, we all know there's a lot of potential for cybersecurity exploitation within this broader enterprise level IT system that's being called blockchain.
Yeah, what a lot of folks don't realize is that most blockchain technology is set up as what one IBM executive called a digital nudist colony, which is to say everyone sees everything whether you like it or not. Now, they're not all that way. Chip got that one. There's one called, oh gosh, it's the one that Grain Chain uses, and I can never remember the name of the technology. That has a high Symbiont, thank you, who encrypt everything. So you get a copy of your competitor's transactions, but they're encrypted, and only the competitor has their transactions keys, so they and their customer can unlock stuff, and all you're getting is a highly non-repudiatable copy of something you can't read. Now, the downside of that is you can't read it for now. You better hope that the secrets in there age pretty rapidly, because decryption is getting better. And there's also traffic analysis. Suddenly my competitor in, Borneo is suddenly exchanging lots and lots of transactions with my customer over there. It's like, why are they talking so much all of a sudden? Something's going on. You don't have to read the transaction to know that it's there. So that could be an exposure. R3 Corda has a structure that eliminates that because you only see the transactions that are relevant to you, and they do a different structure. There's more of a DLT than a blockchain. So your choice of technology matters a lot in terms of how exposed you are on the data sharing side. It's still a very young industry in that regard. And the other thing I think that Tom Furman alluded to is blockchains aren't inherently more secure in every dimension. You can lie to them and they will record your lie for posterity.
Right.
And my stolen key was used to post this lie, and there it is for all to see forever. And now what do we do? Thinking that the blockchain is going to save you from that is childish and mistaken. So you're going to need to have strategies to handle that. The good news is that a lot of the problem spaces that we created with technology in the past do go away. That if, in the past, I've got this going on right now. I have a friend who got a package sent from India, and it vanished somewhere in the middle. And no one knows where the package is, and no one knows how to go about claiming a refund from whichever person it was that lost it. And the company in India is like, send us something in writing proving it's lost. And the carriers don't do that. The carriers only talk to the shipper, not the recipient. And so it's just this big game of, who's in charge, and we're just going to lose a lot of money on this, is what it's going to come down to. You contrast that with something like TradeLens, where, sure, the container ship, the container on a container ship changes custody 17 times on average from when it leaves its source and arrives at its destination, between freight forwarders and third-party logistics companies and all these other folks who have their fingers on it at some time. But I can't give it to you unless you receive it from me, and both my giving it to you and you're receiving it from me are both on the blockchain as one transaction. And I can't let go of it until you take it. We can't drop it in between us. And that's a huge step up. And so that kind of chain of custody game is something that humanity didn't have, and now we do. And worldwide logistics will not be the same. I'm noticing that we've got about 19 minutes left on the call here. I was wondering, in addition to talking about security, which we could devote hours to, what about the psychological side? I've alluded to that a lot of people aren't prepared for a single source of truth. They aren't prepared for their boss to see all their mistakes because maybe their boss can't be trusted with that kind of information. Or maybe they themselves are kind of weaselly and they're trying to get away with stuff. To what extent are you seeing that happening, either with your clients or, well, let's not say it, talk about your company since we're recording the call. Maybe prior companies you used to work for. That might be a safer conversation. Or those your friends work for. Yeah, that's it. Asking for a friend. What are folks' thoughts about the kind of the wetware side, the psychological side of letting go of your own truth and having to embrace a shared truth, in whatever part of it, whatever business you're in?
I can report for some of the business units that I work with, they can't handle the truth, just like the movie says. They don't want to see the truth, and when it comes down to a lot of the transparency and stuff, it is a psychological hit to them, considering that, stuff that they see in their past and stuff that they see in their future becomes, career ending, resume generating events for some of these people. And it does build a little bit of fear, but it also builds in the ability of like, well, we didn't know that was happening, or we didn't know that that was something that we needed to look at and address and be able to change, because wow, that's actually something that's considered to be more of a vulnerability or a loss, or another avenue of change, which is good. So it does spawn lots of different conversations between different people in different units within the business, but it also builds a sense sometimes of contempt, and of definitely of fear. Well, if I do this wrong, something's going to happen and I'm going to get, sacked for it. Well, if you have a good company culture and you learn from your mistakes and you're able to educate and communicate properly like normal humans should, you probably will be able to, see past some of these things and build it into a stronger business than what you've actually got now.
Cool. Thank you, Chip. Who else has a phone?
Well, I might jump in here and comment. It is very, very difficult to get organizations to change. And there's very few that are willing to pioneer a new concept. But I can tell you when organizations are truly motivated is when their competitors start kicking their butt with it. So if there is a profound improvement, significant productivity and efficiency gain, then it's going to be something that organizations won't be able to avoid much longer. And I think blockchain technology, especially as it relates to cross-organizational workflows and transactions, are going to provide that kind of 10x improvement that will be hard for any organization to avoid for too long a time. That's all.
I think you're absolutely right, Don. I didn't know we're seeing that in international trade. As soon as TradeLens popped into existence, there was a mad scramble to come up with competitive alternative chains. And of course, Maersk kind of mishandled the governance side of their rollout and needlessly delayed their success for over a year, which gave several regional chains a chance to pop into existence and take on portions of that industry. The other thing I think you're going to find is, Don's quite right, people hate change. If I used to downplay that to myself because I'm kind of quick to alter things, maybe quicker than most. And someone pointed out to me, yeah, go to your kitchen and move the kitchen trash can somewhere new and tell you, Chip is reacting, and try to persuade your family that we all have to keep it in the new location. You will have an armed insurrection in your home before dinner.
No, there will be death. No, there will be death. There are knives in kitchens. You understand that? Sharp, pointy things that can go into nice, fleshy places. No.
This may not be the safest example. You might want to try something smaller. But you get the point, is that even something as non-significant, maybe, arguably, as where the trash is located, will give rise to very staunch resistance, potentially. What about something that someone's got their career based on? Like if my whole job as a freight forwarder is to manage the complexity between A and B, and then A and B start synchronizing seamlessly, and I'm suddenly out of a job that this can't be good, and I will find every possible reason to resist it. So I'm curious what folks are hearing that's resonating for them, and where you imagine yourself going next. I'm gonna go around and ask folks to either put something in chat, or better yet, I like my technology. I got a slide for this. Hang on just a second. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to share with the group, and that is, we're talking about what kinds of things are going to need to change in organizations for us to be successful in the new world. This is one of the better collections I've found of, it's from a guy named Simon Wardley, creator of Wardley Mapping. And what he found is that there are certain patterns of behavior that are universally useful regardless of your industry or your context. And he's divided them from the bottom layer, which is sort of where everyone should start, up to the top layer of highly sophisticated stuff. And the columns are different areas like communication, development, operations. So the very first thing that any organization should do is try to come up with a common language and make sure that there is some method by which we can challenge our assumptions. Now, it doesn't mean that you challenge people to their face. There's many cultures where we speak indirectly rather than directly. But even those cultures do find ways to challenge assumptions. It's just not maybe a Western style way. And yet, when Wardley would go around to organizations and say, so how good are you at this? Know your users, focus on user names, remove bias and duplication, use appropriate methods. The self-ratings by bankers was that just in these basic things at the first phase, they were all so bad. And they all agreed that they were very bad. But what was interesting was all the banks were equally bad, which meant that none of them had a competitive advantage. And the only thing that was going to cause a problem for them was if some new bank came along that didn't suck. So as you're on your way to blockchain, please think about some of these more soft skill, non-technology, human aspects that are highly correlated with success and are, across different industries, may have different levels of maturity. But which I would agree with Wardley that these really are some of the basics. So that was one thing I wanted to share. Thank you for humoring me.
Hey, Tom, in that deck, that picture, I didn't see it, maybe it was there, but where did you put the concept of start with finding a problem to solve? Because in most businesses, we're looking for reasons to do things are usually centered around challenges we have to solve.
Yeah, that's kind of know your users, focus on user needs. That's where I tuck that in. Is if you don't have a user with a user need, you don't really have a problem worth solving. That'd be my claim. See, I've got a nod from Chip, so I feel like I'm on good ground there. And I misplaced my slides. There they are. So I wanted to prompt folks now with, go back to this slide. We talked about psychological safety. How easily does your organization adopt to new ways of working? And also, is your organization, in supply chain or complex financial transactions? Trick question, everyone's organization has some toe in both supply chain and financial transactions, but some more than others. So that's something for you guys to think about. And before we go any further, I wanted to make sure we had a contact info in here in case you guys want to follow up with somebody. Go ahead.
Hey, Thomas, can you speak back to that comment? I've been listening about change, and are you talking about, a lot of the blockchain use cases that have been commonly talked about, particularly supply chain and other things, are outside your organization? Have you had any conversations with groups that are starting with blockchain inside their organization and practicing within their own internal systems and inefficiencies and so forth?
One in particular that comes to mind when you ask that question is a product created by Grant Thornton, which is a large international accounting company. They're like the sixth largest in the world, so they're after Ernst & Young and that crowd, but they're quite large. And they created a blockchain-based backbone to lash together all of the ERP systems, enterprise resource planning systems, that would be in place across a large multinational. And so if you're, at the C-suite in charge of multiple divisions, and each division's got its own ERP system, and those things do not talk to each other. And if these divisions are, let's say, supplying each other, which would be very common, right? You've got diodes made in Malaysia, and they're used in electronic assemblies created in Taiwan. And then you're like, okay, well, we're not going to buy those on the open market. We're going to have the sister organizations trade with each other. Oh, wait, World Trade Organization requires us to have an internal transfer charge that's equal to market rates. Otherwise, it's an illegal cross subsidy, which means we have to prove what rate we charged, when, by whom, and who approved it. But did I mention that ERPs don't talk to each other? And so they created this system based on EOSIO, where if it was an internal only transaction, the blockchain didn't know about it. But anytime Division A and Division B had some sort of trade or transfer or exchange, this blockchain backbone would get a copy of everything, and it would point up to the two sets of records in the two ERPs. So it would cross-correlate everything for you. And so 9 months from now, when the World Trade Organization comes to you and says, you shipped diodes from Malaysia to Taiwan 8-9 months ago, prove to us you didn't illegally subsidize yourself. And without this, you'd be looking at a team of 5 people for a couple of months doing forensic accounting and analysis. And so Grant Thornton created this thing. I think it's like Trade X, or I'll find the name for you, that lashes together this and seamlessly lets you answer that in a few seconds. Oh, where was it? Oh yeah, here's everything that went between those two divisions. Here's the period in question. Oh, here's a PDF of the request. Here's a PDF of the response. Here's the business rules in place at the time. Here's the pricing that was true in the marketplace. Here's proof that we charged them a market rate. What else can we tell you? InterX is the product. Kirsten just stuck that into chat.
Now, to be a devil's advocate, right?
No.
Could an organization build that same transactional tracking model without blockchain?
You absolutely could. And all you have to do is have a super user that everybody trusted and make sure you never got hacked. And went up with something with very high uptime. And basically you'd have to recreate all of the virtues of blockchain. And at that point you're like, well, but I could get this open source for free today and we know it works.
Right. So I was really being an advocate on the other side for blockchain, obviously, is that there are some value propositions in the blockchain space that aren't the purest approach that says, oh, you always must use it for transactions outside your organization. You always must use it for situations in which you couldn't build it any other way.
Right.
And the reality is
that's not
it's a
true.
business decision, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely correct. So I want to pull up, if I may, the final poll of our final 5 minutes.
I think Ken's correct. I mean, it would boil down to, how much money is going to be involved with this? Is it just going to be a simple lift and shift, or is this going to be an involved process that's going to go, company wide?
Right. Yeah. And my personal pointer to which thing you want to look for your use case is, what is the hairball that is difficult to reconcile complex transactions with 2 or more parties and shifting rules. There's some examples from healthcare where you've got a team of people making up new deals and new pricing structures, and they change every couple of months, and the accounts don't get reconciled for months at a time. and you literally have teams of people trying to forensically examine the records to see, wait, which contract was active in November of last year? And we did this cost reimbursement scheme for the extra lidocaine, and it was that under this regime or that regime? And they hate it, okay? And they can't seem to get their organizations to stop coming up with these complex rules. And then they throw into this group of clerks to sort out, like, what should we have charged each other at that point? And no one knows. There's millions of dollars at stake, and they're all baffled by it, and they hate it. And so Chronicled, having done MetaLedger for the resale of controlled substances, moved on to do a continuous reconciliation approach to this problem space as well. It's the kind of thing that makes folks very, very happy, because you no longer spend hours and hours of time and have, dozens or hundreds of people trying to sort out what happened in the past. You just let your system handle that for you. Probably not doing justice to the problem space, but you get the idea. Look for the things where coordination is important and difficult. I would claim that that's where you're going to find DLT in the near future. So what is it about today? Yeah,
I have a question. Do you see a lot of people taking like their Salesforce, like you're talking about, you're talking about sales, you're talking about, transactions that are between customers and clients and so forth. Do you see people integrating a lot of their, Salesforce data in with blockchain, for that main reason, for the example that you gave? Thomas, was like, tracking, oh, we lost that, where did it come from, or who did it, or how much was it, so forth, so forth, so forth. How do we track that back down? Do you see a lot more of that integration with sales in a way, and Salesforce, so tracking, that kind of information?
The sales thing that seemed most interesting to me, what's come into my memory as you asked that, was insurance company. There's a whole bunch of insurance folks who are trying to figure out what to use to make a blockchain. And I don't know that they've solved this, but the problem space that occurred to me that they should be working on is whose customer is it? So that if you buy life insurance from Don, and then Ken comes along and also sells you car insurance, but Don's the first person to sell, and so you're sort of Don's customer, and so Don should get like some sort of trailing commission thereafter. But these guys can't keep their own records straight. They don't know whose lead is whose. They don't know that the two different Don Bodens with these two different policies from two different arms of this insurance conglomerate. It's actually the same Don. Banks are the same way. You call in and you've got like mutual funds and an IRA account and a checking account, and they're going into 3 different systems in 3 windows that keep re-authenticating you. What was your mother's maiden name again? I told you twice. And like they don't have a single source of truth of who you are. And so that kind of keeping a complex world straight in their own minds is kind of the cutting edge for a lot of companies.
Yeah, mortgage brokerage, that's the number one thing, is like record keeping, because there's so much that goes into, you think about your mortgage, right? How many times did you sign your paperwork, to buy your house? And then if you refinance, then you got a whole nother set of paperwork, and then you got fire, claim, insurance, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. So that's the reason why I asked that is, because we do see that in banking. It's like, we want to use blockchain just for this little bitty thing, not all of it, but just this little niche thing, so that we could keep up with those records, because they've got to keep those records for 10 to 20 years, depending on what it is. So.
Right. And I think what you're going to see is that a lot of providers are going to build APIs. They're going to build integrations with existing software providers like SAP and Salesforce. And so you'll get the benefit of blockchain integration without the end user having to do anything differently, which is, to my mind, how we're going to get widespread use. On that note, we're out of time. So I want to encourage you to tell us what it is about today's talk that felt most useful to you. If you have any other questions, I will probably stop recording here, but we might hang out for a few more minutes and take informal questions. Totally up to our hosts.
I unfortunately have to step off. Actually, Thomas, I can make you the host, and then
Sure.
we'll go from there. But continue going, folks. Thanks everyone for joining, or those who are going to step off as well. And then for our next talk in this series, we're going to be hosting Aline Camisa from, he's a Canadian-based blockchain expert, and he'll be talking about decentralized finance, DeFi, and that'll be on August 26th at, I believe, 2 p.m. Central. Thank you all. Thanks. I'll just step off. Thanks.
Thank you, Remy, very much for hosting.
Thanks, Remy.
Thanks.
I have now